There we go. Just wanted to make sure we were getting it recorded.
Oh, yeah, okay.
You're all set.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm good. What's up with you?
Same old, same old.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Hey, Eric, mind if I ask you a question?
No, shoot.
So listen, I'm going through my sign-in sheet list from my open house last weekend, and the emails I have on here, I'm not 100% sure if they had come in with an agent or not. So what's the best way to follow up with the prospect without knowing that? Should I just kind of,
I would just move forward assuming they don't have an agent. And if they say, hey, I've got an agent, then you don't, I mean, if you're not sure, right?
Should I mention that in the email saying like, if you are currently represented?
No, maybe they'll like you better. I mean, there's been a number of times. I mean, I'm not saying to poach people, right? I would never say poach people. But if you're not sure, I mean, if you give them the out and say, hey, if you want to sit like way in the back, because I'm going to stand in the middle there, and or else you're going to be looking at my butt. Like, if you're not sure they're represented, and you say, hey, are you represented? And they just want an out. So they're like, oh, if I say, yeah, I'm represented, then he's going to leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? So it kind of gives them an out to not deal with you.
Okay.
So I never volunteer that. And I never asked that question. I never asked that question at the open house for that matter. So, I mean, I've had really good conversations with people, and at the end they say, oh, okay, we're working with an agent. And then a month later they call me. Like, for those people, I sold one in the neighborhood you just did an open house in. They did the same thing. I don't remember their names. That's bad.
Travis and Aluna.
Yeah, Travis and Aluna. They told me they were working with an agent, but they were the only people there. So I continued to have a good conversation with them. And about a month later, they said, I don't know if you remember us. We were working with somebody, but we want somebody local that we like. And then they were working with me. So, and I sold them a house and I got a check and it's all cool.
Thanks for that.
we're gonna give it 1 minute and then we're gonna start because I got stuff I gotta do.
You've got about 10 to 12 people on the Zoom meeting.
Okay, we're gonna start. Everybody that actually came to the meeting and it's in the room is getting a $200 gift certificate to Best Buy. Those of you on Zoom, you get nothing because you just didn't come in. So I'm kidding. So my name's Eric Anderson. I'm on the ALC. I've been an agent for almost exactly 5 years. I think my 5-year birthday is this month. I started my business moving here to Tampa. I knew nobody. I knew like 5 people. So I didn't have a sphere of influence. I had nobody to call locally. 90% of my business the first year and the first 2 years came from open houses. I've taught this class for the last 3 years or so. 4 years, I've taught it a while. Most of this class is going to be, not most of it. I'm going to teach it pre-COVID. Okay, so I'm going to tell you things that obviously it's going to be more difficult or different to do today, right? I'm hoping we go back to normal. I will slip some COVID things in there. But you know, a lot of the stuff you're going to say, well, we can't do that now. And I'll say, I know this is what I do, or this is what's challenging about it, et cetera, et cetera. For instance, finding an open house is wicked hard right now, super hard, really hard. Everything I teach you in this class, or everything I tell you in this class today, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that's what I do. All right. And that's how I capture the leads. Everything that I teach you in this class today, I've done wrong at one point or another. Right. So I've probably done, I don't know, 300 open houses conservatively. Full disclosure, I have not done an open house in probably, I think January was the last time I did an open house. It's just super hard to, that's not true. I did one in February. It was my own listing. It's really tough to find them right now. So hopefully that COVID thing goes away here shortly. And we can go back to doing normal open houses. Because as you can imagine, a lot of my business still comes from open houses, and it's hurting me a little bit. So I've still closed probably $2 million this year. And I've got another couple deals on the books. So I'm not doing great, but I'm not eating ramen noodles yet. Okay. So most of the people in here, I'm going to assume you're new, but if you're not, then you just have to listen to what I say anyway. The purpose of the open house. All right. So you're not going to, 99.9% of the time, you are not going to sell that open house. I've done 300 open houses. I've put exactly one of those under contract that I met those people that day. Okay. One. And that fell out of contract during inspection, not because of inspection, but they had a death in the family, their plans changed. Okay. So I've never actually sold an open house. So you're not going to sell that house. The whole object of the open house is to get leads. You want to meet buyers, you want to meet people. You can meet sellers as well. You can meet neighbors and have good conversations. They remember your name, and maybe their neighbor goes to sell, or their friend's going to look, or whatever, right? So it's 100% just to get leads. All right. I don't cold call. I've never cold called. You know, we do some farming. I would say most of my business now is probably split 50-50 on referrals, which could be past clients, and open houses, right? So I put a house under contract yesterday. It is somebody I sold the house to. It is somebody that I met in an open house. So I met them in an open house, I sold the house to them, and now I'm selling their house. So what is that? I mean, I always consider that as an open house lead, but Jen will tell you it's a past client lead, but whatever. So my open house process starts on Monday or Tuesday. The very first thing you're going to want to do is you want to pick the house. Okay. Again, like pre-COVID here. Okay. So you want a house that's going to generate traffic. All right. So if I don't have at least like 8 groups of people through an open house, I'm not real happy about it. Okay. Now there's such a thing as too many, but I mean, that's a different story. No, I guess I'd rather have too many than none. So when I'm looking for an open house, the first thing I'm looking at is I typically try to choose a vacant house. I think it's easier. You can get in, you don't have to worry about sellers and stuff like that getting out. It's easier that way. I have done occupied homes as well, so that's not a deal breaker for me. Vacant's just easier. You're going to look at the price point. So everybody's got their own business model and what they're going to do. Personally, I like to live in the 400s, right? So if I can do an open house that's in the 400s, that's typically my neighborhood anyway. So I like to stay in my own neighborhood because I know the most about my own neighborhood. If I could never leave my neighborhood and do open houses, that's what I would do. And I would say 95% of the time I do open houses in my own neighborhood. My neighborhood's pretty big too. So price point, right? So if you do an open house in a $400,000 house, you're going to find $400,000 buyers. I would much rather work with a $400,000 buyer than a $200,000 buyer because I find the checks are bigger. So, so you're going to do price, right? So when I started, I was 45 years old. I didn't look like I was 12, so it was easier for me to go into a higher price point house. Nobody ever questioned. In the entire time of doing open houses, I think one person at the beginning asked me, how long have you been doing this? And I had to say 2 months. And they said, really? And I was like, yep. So the next thing I'm going to look at is active days on the market, right? So you don't want to pick a house that's been on the market for 6 months. I typically like, I mean, right now, I mean, houses are going off the market in days, hours, whatever, right? So it's a different conversation. But, you know, if you can find a house that's 14 days on the market or less, again, pre-COVID time, right? So if you can find a house that's 14 days on the market or less, that's where you want to be. Right now, if you really want to work, right, and you need to work, you might have to go to a house that's been on the market for 3 months, right? But it's going to severely limit your traffic, right? If you get a cutesy looking house, so if you can, you want to look at that house prior to, right? So everything I've done wrong. I've showed up before where I didn't look at a house. There was roaches everywhere. It was a god awful mess. You know how photographers make their houses look better, right? So it's a god awful mess. Even though there's a listing sign out front with some lady's picture on it. People walk in, they don't even see that. Because a lot of times they'll ask me, do you have any other houses? It's like, well, I don't even have this one. So, so what I'm saying is they are going to associate you with that house, right? So you pick a good looking one, you pick a good house, you pick something you know is going to get a lot of traffic. You pick something in a neighborhood you know is popular, right? Like if you can do a Seminole Heights or like I like to do West Chase. So just places that are popular, you know you're going to get a lot of traffic from. So again, if you can check out the house ahead of time, it really makes it helpful. And these days right now, you probably don't have time. But I did a house in the middle of summer one time and showed up and there was no power in it. That was a brutal open house. Vacant, occupied, checking, pick your own house. Okay, so lastly, when you're looking for an open house, you can do an open house for any brokerage, right? And I've done them all, right? So there are some agents I know don't ask because they're just going to say no matter what, and you'll learn who those agents are over time. But I've done them for, you know, Charles Rutenberg. I got a bunch of deals out of a Charles Rutenberg. There's that small brokerage in my neighborhood. I've done Remax, Coldwell Banker. It doesn't matter. Ask whoever you can ask and try to get that open house. You will be surprised the number of times that people will say, oh, really? Hey, that's great. Sure, you can do my open house, right? There are going to be people that you're going to get an old person that says, you can't do that. I've had that happen before, right? So when people tell you no and to get lost, don't take it personally. Just move on to the next one. So any brokerage, how do I do that? I pick up the phone and I call them. I say, hey, Bob, you got a listing in my neighborhood. You know, I do a lot of open houses here. I'd really like to get you some traffic and get me some leads. Okay. So obviously just be honest about it. They know you're doing it for leads. So just tell them, right? I might shoot a text. I might shoot an email. You know, there are a number of agents that I know, and all I got to do is text them and I know they're going to say yes to me. I've had agents call me before from different brokerages and ask me if I wanted to do an open house because I've done so many. So anyway, picking the house is going to be half of your traffic, right? So 50% of the way is picking the right house. Now, in today's market, A, that's a lot tougher. B, any house you put out there, you're going to get traffic on, as long as it's not a complete dog. Again, as long as it's a limited amount of time on the market. Everybody knows how to look that up. You can filter an MLS for active days on the market. Like I'll go in, if I'm looking for an open house, I'll draw a map around where I want to be. I'll filter to active days on the market. I'll filter to vacant, which you can filter to vacant. Just because it doesn't say vacant doesn't mean it's not vacant. Sometimes you got to look through the pictures and figure out if it's vacant or not, right? So choose your open house. Let's say, all right, so you've found your open house. You found the house you're going to do. Let's say it's Tuesday and Bob's listing agent, Bob, and you say, Bob, thanks so much for letting me do the open house. Will you please put that open house in MLS for me? All right. You cannot put the open house in MLS because you don't have access to his MLS. So you go to Bob and say, hey, Bob, put that in MLS for me. Bob's going to click, you know, and do MLS. And what that does is it populates to Zillow, populates to realtor.com, right? So if you pick the right house and you make sure it's an MLS, again, half your traffic is going to come for that. If you've picked the right house, half your traffic is going to come for that. In this market, maybe even more than half your traffic is going to come from that. Okay, so make sure you do a good job at that. Secondly, you do not know Bob at all. Okay, Bob could be completely incompetent, and there's a lot of agents out there that don't have the training as like Keller Williams does. So verify that open house is there, right? Again, everything I'm telling you today, I've done wrong at one point or another. So, right? So verify verify. Hey, Jenny, will you let two people in? Never mind, she got them. So verify the open house is in there. You search MLS, you can search for open house and you can make sure it's actually in there. Make sure it's the right time, make sure it's the right date. Again, all these things have been done wrong. I've had to talk agents through how to put their own listing in as an open house because they've never done it before, okay? It's fairly simple once you learn where it is. But ask Brian, he did it for the first time the other day and he's like, the button's not there, the button's not there. But eventually we found it and we got it in MLS. So make sure it's an MLS. You really want to have that in there. If you're going to do an open house Saturday, sometimes Zillow populates really slow, sometimes it's better, okay? I've had people call me about a house that was on Zillow and I go to look at the pictures on Zillow and the pictures aren't in Zillow yet, but they're in MLS, okay? So you really want to have it in there Thursday. A, people make plans for the weekend on Friday, and B, it takes a while for it to get into Zillow. So make sure you have that open house in there. It's vitally important you get it on there. So you've chosen the right house. It's in MLS. It's pulled into Zillow. You're going to get half your traffic from that. So in the days leading up to it, do your free marketing, put it on your business Facebook, put it on your personal Facebook. There's different Facebook groups out there like Open House Tampa, or there's a number of them out there. You know, we usually just kind of do it in we usually just kind of do it in our own marketing. It just helps, again, it just lets everybody know you're a realtor, so don't be a secret agent. Sometimes I'll have a client that maybe so I met him at an open house, and am I going to sell him a house? Yeah, probably, maybe not. I don't know. Do I really think they're solidly my client? I might invite those people specifically to my open house just so I get a second meeting with them, right? So I'll say, hey. So I may invite those people specifically to my open house. We'll go off topic here for a second. Every once in a while, you'll have a lender show up to an open house, right? and this, thank you.
Since it's hot out and you're gonna be
Yeah,
thirsty all day.
yeah. So every once in a while, you'll have a lender, a title person. You'll get hit up at open houses a lot. Said Rich, I don't know if you know I was here or not, but so every once in a while, you'll have an open house and a lender will show up, okay? And you'll be working a lead, and that lender is will just keep on talking to you because you're working a lead and Rich is working me because he's trying to get my business, right? Or a title person. That's where I met my title person that I swear by and I will use every single time at an open house, right? But you got to say, so hopefully that lender is smart enough to know that you're working and you're trying to get leads, right? I've had a number of lenders that weren't smart enough to know that, and they sit there and talk to you. Meanwhile, I've got people walking through the house that I want to try to capture, right? So what I do is, don't be a nice person at this point. You lean into Rich or whoever that might be, and Rich is smart. He knows not to do this, okay? So you lean into that and you say, thank you so much for coming. I'm working here trying to get leads and you are not helping me. If you want any chance in HE double hockey sticks to ever get any business out of me, go away until there's nobody in the house. And that'll happen. Now, Rich, you're not on camera. Rich, so I use Rich a lot. Rich, we've probably done dozens of deals. I use Rich because on a Saturday at 8 o'clock at night when I've just met somebody and they really like a house, I can call Rich and he'll pre-qualify. He'll pre-qual on the weekend or pre-approve on the weekend for me. So, hey, Jen, if you're still on, will you type Rich's info in the chat thingamajigger? So
Will do.
I appreciate the.
The other thing, as a loan officer, what I'll say is, like, for example, we were at your
Brian.
we were at your open house. So my job as a loan officer is when I go to an open house, is just to come in and say, hey, shake your hand, bring me some water.
Eric,
If nobody there, I'll talk to you.
stand closer to Rich. We can't hear him.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you a call next week. When someone walks in, I flat out, when someone walks in, I vanish. I'm not going to stay around. We were, my wife, who was an agent here as well, we were at this open house. Somebody came in and we were like, hasta la vista. To come in, say hello, get a card so that we can call you on the flip side and get an appointment to have some coffee or a better transaction. That way you can put a name with a face and they can put your face with your name. But if someone's sticking around, then they're not doing their, I was in an open house last year and I walked in with a couple of people that were working with me that were new and I was trying to show them how to do it. And there was a loan officer from another company that spent and they did not know we were loan officers. Spent 35 minutes with this and you could see it was just agent say,
Yeah, 100%. Just say, listen, get lost. Just say, get lost. I'm working here, right? I mean, you've invested in an open house for me is 5 hours of my time. Okay. If you've got kids and family and you're doing these on the weekends, primarily 5 hours of your time. I mean, come on, you got to don't be nice about that. Tell that guy to get bent.
Because if they're not smart enough to understand that that's money time for you,
yeah,
then do you really want to work with them anyways?
Yeah, you don't need to be worked with. And so I do a lot of deals with Rich, and full disclosure, I know I am never, ever going to get a lead from Rich, right? I deal with Rich because Rich is good at what he does and he works my hours and I can text him at 9 o'clock at night. He pre-approved me. I think I got the letter for that Lori Huber.
Yeah.
Probably 11 o'clock at night one
Yeah,
night.
yeah. It was like 2 weeks ago.
Carolyn was probably yelling at you. So his wife's a realtor. I know I'm never getting a lead from him ever. Right? So there you go. He's good and he gets my loans done and I never have to sweat it. So,
So using that cue, I'm just gonna say hello.
yeah, see you later,
Here's
Rich.
some cards if you need them. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. So you're gonna you want to make sure it's you want to make sure it's in Zillow. If it's not in Zillow, you're not doing yourself any favors. The day of the week. So you can do, obviously Saturday and Sundays are going to be your best time to do an open house, right? I typically do 1 to 4 because I don't like getting up early in the morning, but you could do, 11 to 2. If you've got the right house, 11 to 2, 1 to 4, I don't think it matters, right? Maybe on a Sunday, if you want to catch some church people, you might not do like quite as early. But I don't really think there's any wrong answer on the weekends trying to do it. I've done every day of the week. I've done Friday 3 to 6. When I was a new agent and I didn't have anything going on, right? All I was going to do was miss an episode, a rerun of Law and Order, and miss playing with the cats for a little bit. So I would go out, I would do Tuesdays, I would do Fridays. I would mix it up, do different things to try to get leads, right? Again, I had nothing going on, so I might as well try. But I think the weekend is the best time to do it. So the day of the open house, don't be late, show up on time. I had an agent do an open house on one of my listings one time, and it's weird because she let me get a start when I first started. And her and her husband were agents, and they were bigger agents. And she let me do an open house in my neighborhood a bunch of times. So she asked me to do an open house. I'm like, oh my God, the roles reversed. This is awesome. Yeah, of course you can. Of course you can. The girl showed up an hour late, right? Meanwhile, that's in Zillow. Guess whose name's on Zillow? Your name's on Zillow if it's your listing, right? And you show up an hour late. I was like, oh my God, you're a hot mess. So I'm always in the house a half hour early, right? So if I got an open house at 1 o'clock, I'm leaving my house at noon, right? And again, where I'm driving to is usually within 5-10 minutes of my house, right? I'm putting out my signs. There's no such thing as too many signs. These are the signs I use. You can get these at Image 360. It is on Dale Mabry, south of Linebaugh. If you call them and say, hey, give me the Keller Williams deal, these are $10 a piece. So now they do come with bases, but they come with crappy bases. My wife buys these bases for me on the internet someplace, and you might think that's really getting technical and Eric, what are you doing? But like these bases are super sturdy. And when you're putting out 15, 20 signs and I walk up and I do this and I jam it in the ground and I walk away versus I got that flimsy one and every sign I'm doing this, I'm trying to find a soft spot and wiggling it in. I think these are like $4 a piece, 100% worth it, but you do you. So anyway, Image 360, you can Google it, I'm sure. I get those signs. So where I'm putting my signs, let's say I got to have somebody turn off Linebaugh. For those of you who don't know, Linebaugh is a busy street. Hey, we're right on Linebaugh right here, aren't we? So you should know Linebaugh. So people are driving down the road 45, 50 miles an hour. If you put one just right at the corner where they need to turn in, they're driving down going 55, going, hey, open house, and they're past it before they get there, right? So what I'll do is I'll walk down a couple, 100, 150 yards, and I'll put one, maybe it's 75, I'll put one. So I'll put a couple going down that way. In my own neighborhood, the way I look at that is marketing impressions. The more signs. Now, I also see agents who put 25 on 1/4 and it just looks stupid and obnoxious. I would not do that. But just enough. And then every turn to get where you're going, you're going to put a sign and then you're going to put one right in front of the house. I used to do balloons and I just staple little balloon things on here on the end. I don't do the balloons anymore. That was kind of when I was newer. I mean, you can do balloons. I don't think it hurts, but just the time versus what I thought I got out of it, I just don't do it anymore. So I've got in my neighborhood, there's a bunch of high-end apartment buildings. I say high-end, like some of these townhouses and stuff are like $2,200-$2,300 to rent these things, right? It's right in West Park Village. So if I've got a listing in that particular area, if I'm doing something in the village, I make sure I put any sign I put up, anybody leaving those apartments, that they're going to see my sign on the way out, right? So I make sure they're heading out. Hey, let's stop by and see this guy in a house, right? Because people hate living in those things and they're super expensive. I've stolen. I've taken so many people out of those apartments and put them in homes. I've lost count, right? It's a great thing to do. I'll also look on the day of the open house, and I'll look in MLS and I'll see what other open houses are there. And maybe I've got a house that's 14 days old, right? And it's just at the cusp of being good, and I'm going to do the open house. But something popped up in MLS yesterday, and it's a really good house, and they are doing an open house. Guess what? Anybody leaving that open house, I don't care where it is going to see my signs directing them to the next open house. Okay. I've been to a number of open houses. And there are some people that just, they think it's their duty to do it, and they sit there and they don't try to get leads. They're just there, they're warming a chair with their butt, and that's all they're doing, right? So just because there's another open house, the chances of, in my own neighborhood, the chances of somebody being better than me doing an open house are slim to none, honestly, right? So even if they did meet somebody first, I want them to come to me second. So that's enough about signs. Any questions? Excellent. Okay. So don't be late, show up early. A lot of times in the dead of the summer, especially if it's at a vacant house, I will change clothes when I get to the open house, because running around like this, putting up signs when you're playing Frogger across Linebaugh sucks, right? So I'll do it in shorts. I'll do it in shorts and a polo shirt. Now, you don't want to look like a complete bum because you're still carrying your name around. People are going to see you, okay? So I will actually put a shirt with a collar on. I'm not wearing my Mickey Mouse shirt that day. But I'll change at the house, which means I have to leave an extra 15 minutes early. Hey, that's fine by me. I'd much rather be comfortable and not sweating as soon as I walk in the door, especially with these slippery shoes and you're trying to run across Linebaugh in between traffic. So, what I do when I get there early, I'm going to set up, I'm going to turn the lights on. If you're not familiar with the house, I'm going to flush the toilets, because somebody is going to ask you to go to say, hey, can my little daughter go tinkle? Okay, so I'm going to make sure the toilets work. And that way, ahead of time. Again, everything I tell you, I've done wrong. So I bring toilet paper with me, because a lot of times vacant house, there's no toilet paper there. I'll put on a little bit of music, White Rock, Dave Matthews, what have you. I'll bring bottled water. I don't do cookies. I don't do any of that crap, because nobody's ever going to buy a house from you because you had cookies. Okay. If you want to do cookies, knock yourself out. I wouldn't do cookies right now because people are deathly afraid of COVID. And really, are they going to eat your cookies? No, you're going to end up eating all the cookies yourself. And then you're going to get one of these like I got. So, I don't even bring bottled water these days, just because people are so afraid of it. But when we go back to normal, I'm going to bring bottled water when it's a hot day. So if it's applicable, I'm going to open the doors for the 7 or 8 days in Tampa where it's not too cold and not too hot, and you can open a door out to a pool. I'm going to do that. For COVID, I'm going to turn on every light and open up every door just so it's less things people have to touch. So I do bring sanitizer. I bring sanitizer. Honestly, that's really all I do. I bring a mask, for myself, and I have a box of 50 masks in the car. If somebody walks in my open house and there's nobody in the open house and they walk in without a mask, I don't care. I mean, but again, that's your own threshold for what you want to do. You knock yourself out. This is my uniform. This is what I wear to an open house. If I'm feeling really frisky, I might put a tie on with a white shirt. Again, you're going to be on your feet the whole day. So, comfortable shoes, et cetera, et cetera. You want to look like you know what you're doing. So I try to trick people into looking like I know what I'm doing. So I don't bring a lot of, so I'll bring one simple flyer to an open house. Okay. And if you want, you can type your name in the chat. And if you really want to see what a flyer looks like, my wife can email you one. If you just want to put your email in there, I'm sure she'd love to do that for me. My wife is Jennifer, and she is on this call with us. So, and she may or may not be listening. But I bring one simple flyer. Okay. It's got a couple pictures of the home. It's got my name, big, huge name, right? I don't care who the listing agent is. They are not going to have any marketing material while I'm at that house. Sometimes you'll walk in and the listing agent will have some MLS sheets or some propaganda out, right? That's all going in a drawer, right? So, Now, you do want to pay attention when you walk into a house and you're doing somebody else's listing, you want to put the house back to the way you found it. All right. So make sure you put their stuff back out. Again, everything I've done wrong. So you've got the house, you put out your signs, you got a sign out front. Don't bark in the driveway because you can get blocked in. If you have, safety, security, make sure somebody knows where you're at, touch base with them, have some sort of plan, safe word, whatever. I mean, you do want to be safe doing these things. Door knocking, right? So I in my neighborhood, door knocking is kind of frowned upon. So I haven't door knocked in years. And honestly, I didn't get much out of door knocking, so I must not be good at it. But I know there are a lot of people that get stuff out of door knocking, right? In an opportunity, an open house. So let's say you knock, 30 of the homes around that home, and you go to the house and say, hey, my name's Eric. I'm doing an open house down the way. Just wanted to let you know in case you saw a bunch of cars, what was going on. Or, hey, if you want to be, I joke with them, say, hey, if you want to be nosy and check out your neighbor's house, stop by and see me on Saturday. Okay. One of two things is going to happen. They're either going to grunt and shut the door on you, or they're going to go, oh, really? What house? And then you're having a conversation, right? All you're doing is trying to have a conversation. Again, I haven't door knocked in a while. Maybe I should start doing it. I know Vince got I know Vince got some listings out of it lately. So maybe I should start doing that because open houses for me right now stink. Anyway, so you're all set up. You're ready to go. Does anybody have any questions right now? I'll take a question right now if you have one. Excellent. Okay. So the day of the open house. So I've got a little thing set up with my flyers in it. Somebody comes in the door. Oh, so that's another thing I'm doing. I'm putting a sign on the front door that says, please come in. Okay. And the reason for that is, let's say you're sitting here working a lead, I'm having a conversation, and all of a sudden the doorbell rings and I go, hold on a second, I'll be right back, right? But you're a hot lead. I go open the door and it's some old lady that comes in and she immediately starts talking my ear off, right? Talking my ear off. Meanwhile, he goes, okay, hey, Eric, it was great to meet you. And he walks out the front door, right? That stinks. So I always make sure that I put, please come in. So they just come in. Even then, somebody's going to ring the doorbell on you. So people walk in. The first thing I'm going to do is I want to tell them 3 things about the house. So we're just going to use this as a pretend prop and pretend it's my flyer. So again, old days, I would shake hands with somebody. Can't do that, right? So, hey, how you doing? Nice. My name's Eric. And you stick your hand out. Hopefully they tell you your name. Okay. So now I have not done too many open houses COVID, right? So I'll say, hey, my name's Eric. Here's the propaganda on the house. And then you want to tell them, 1, 2, 3 things about the house that maybe, so I keep walking off camera. So say, hey, here's the open house, shake their hand. You may want to tell them 1, 2 things about the house, right? Conversation starter type thing. Hey, the roof's brand new. It comes with the washer dryer. The pool is salt water. You don't want to say, here's the kitchen. They know that. They know where the kitchen is, right? So, hey, the AC's new, whatever. Tell them a couple good things about the house. And then what I like to do is I like to direct traffic. So I might say, the master bedroom's right over here. When you tell somebody that, what do? They immediately walk to the master bedroom, right? So they're going to go right where you pointed them. Why do I do that? If you've got a good open house and you've picked the right open house and you expect a lot of traffic through, if you can direct the traffic, they're going to come to a point in the open house that I call the ambush point. Okay. That's where I'm going to try to get them as a client. All right. And if Bob walks in and goes that way and Dave walks in and goes this way, they both circle the house and they meet me in the middle. I got a choice. Do I try to pick Bob or do I try to pick Dave? Right. So if I can direct traffic, I got a better chance of getting both of them, or one or the other. Anyway, it's a super small thing, but it has actually helped me once or twice. So I do that. So I direct traffic, right? I say, hey, so let's say Bob walks in, I shake his hand. I go, hey, Bob, nice to meet you. It's Bob and Karen. That's their names, right? Bob and Karen walk this way. The very first thing I'm going to do, and again, maybe you don't have to do this, but I do, is I'm going to pull out my handy dandy index card holder. And I'm going to write Bob and Karen on this because there's a 75% chance I'm going to forget their names before they're even in that master bedroom. Right? So I'm going to write Bob and Karen on here. It's another way to kind of track how many people you have through your open house too. So I write their names down. So Bob and Karen, they're off. They're going through the house, right? Don't follow them. You don't want to follow them around the open house. They don't want to be followed around the open house. Give them space. Let them go. They're going to walk through the open house. Every house is different, right? So it depends on the flow. Like I've been in small townhouses where there was no flow, and it is what it is. I mean, you walk in and you're standing there in front of them. There's nowhere for them to go. It is what it is. So, so they're going to go and they're going to, so once Bob and Karen have seen the kitchen and the master, they know that house is either A, right for them, or B, not right for them, right? 95% of the time. They've seen 2 rooms. They've kind of looked around when they walked in. They've seen enough where they know if that house is good for them. And really, so I try to, they don't necessarily need to see the 2 kid bedrooms over there or whatever it is, right? Maybe they need to look at the pool, but typically when you walk in, you kind of see through the house. And once you're in there, if you're in the kitchen, you could probably see the pool area. Anyway, so once they've seen half the house, right? I'm going to go to Bob and Karen, and this is the second most important thing you're going to learn today besides picking the right house, is I'm going to say, is this house right for you? Right? Or what else do I say? Again, been so long since I did an open house, I may have to teach myself how to do it. Is this house something that works for you? Is this close to what you're looking for? Okay. So all you're trying to do at this point is you're trying to start a conversation. You are not selling that house. Now, an agent, most likely this is not your listing when you first start doing this, right? And even if it is your listing, so then you're obligated to the seller, you're obligated to the agent, okay? So you want to be respectful of the person who let you do this open house, okay? So my rule of thumb is I would never say anything to somebody that came in the door that I would not say to the owner of the home. Okay. So occasionally you'll get somebody, is this house overpriced? Right? Wiggle around it. Don't answer the question. Say, well, it's a tough market right now. You know, a price of a home is worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, whatever, right? So just assume in your mind, this is the owner I'm talking to, right? And if you say something stupid to that person, maybe it's that owner's, maybe it's a friend of an owner. Okay. Again, everything I'm telling you I've done wrong. Okay. So again, of course, that's going to go right back to the agent, and you are never going to get another one of their open houses. So be respectful in what you say. Anyway, so Bob and Karen come out and I say, hey, is this something close to what you're looking for? That's pretty much my standard line. Okay. Or does this house work for you? Whatever. What are Bob and Karen going to say? They're going to say one of a couple things. They're going to say, yes, there's about a 2% chance of that happening. No, there's a much bigger chance of that happening. Or one of 3 things. Or they're going to start talking to you. Well, you know, we kind of wanted, you know, an extra bedroom. We kind of, you know, we want something more updated. We don't like pink walls. We want it 2 stories, whatever they're going to say, right? So at that point, you're having a conversation with them. And that's where you want to, and that is ultimately where you want to get yourself. You've chosen the right house. You've set up properly. You've started a conversation with Bob and Karen. You start that conversation by saying, is this something that works for you? Or is this close to what you're looking for? At that point, Bob and Karen and you start having a conversation. And at that point, what I do is I try to ask Bob and Karen as many questions as I could possibly rattle off in a short period of time without looking like the little kid from Uncle Buck. Right. So I'll start saying, so what is it? So, and they'll say no. And I'll say, okay, well, what, you know, why doesn't it work? If they say no, why doesn't it work for you? Well, we wanted a 4th bedroom. We wanted, or this, that, or whatever. Right. So I keep a little pad of paper laying around. So this is not a pad of paper, but we're going to pretend it is for this. Right. But I have little pads of paper, and I'll take this pad of paper as I'm talking and I'll say, what are you looking for? And they'll start talking to me, and I'm going to start writing it down on this pad of paper right where they can see me writing it down. Right. And they're going to say, well, we wanted a 4-2, blah, 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 and anything say, and then say, does schools matter to you? Do you like a pool? What about a yard? Do you care if it backs up to conservation or you've got neighbors right behind you? Right? So at this point, you're doing a mini consultation with them. You're doing a buyer's consultation with them, right? You're pulling information out of them. Hey, so do you live locally? Do you know the neighborhood? Oh, you don't live locally? Where did you move from? Right? So things I have to my advantage. I know my neighborhood as well as anybody. And half the stuff I know about my neighborhood, I've learned from open houses because people smarter than me have told me things, right? So I know everything there is about Westchase, right? I encourage you to be an expert of wherever you're going to be, right? So, oh, where did you move from? The other thing I use to my advantage is I've lived in a good portion of the United States, and I've been to a good portion of the United States. And I would say 75% of the time, they tell me where they're from or where they moved from. I've either A, been there, or B, lived there. So I use that to my advantage. And I say, oh yeah, you're from St. Louis. Oh, you know, my favorite place in St. Louis, you ever go up on the hill for the Italian food? You know, oh yeah, yeah. Or McConnell's for a burger. But anyway, so I'm not selling the house. I'm not selling the house, but I'm selling myself, okay? So any local knowledge you can drop on them about Westchase, you can give them. Hey, the CDD is very reasonable. The HOA is very low. They do tons of stuff for kids, right? Any information every once in a while, I'll do an open house outside of my comfort zone, right? Like last year I had a really nice home in New Tampa that I did. And I was just so uncomfortable there because every time they asked me a question, I didn't know the answer to it. But how you pick up people is you drop local knowledge on them. You tell them how well you know the neighborhood. You tell them all these things. And then if they're looking in the neighborhood, they want to use somebody that knows the neighborhood, right? Or they can answer those questions. So I'm having this conversation with Bob and Karen, and I'm going along and I say, hey, just say something like, hey, I could help you find this house, right? I know the area pretty well. When I get home, I can hop on my computer. Would you like me to send you some listings that meet your criteria and stuff in the area? Okay. Or again, every conversation is different. I may not say it exactly like that, right? Sometimes I'm not pushy and I go, hey, listen, I'm not going to spam you. Send you a bunch of garbage. You're not going to get any marketing or anything from me. If you like something, hey, give me a shout. We can talk about it, right? What's your email? And you'll be surprised the number of times people will just spout off their email, right? So what's your email? Oh, it's Bob and Karen at Comcast.com or whatever. And I write it down. I say, what's a good phone number to follow up with you? You'll be surprised the number of times they will give you a phone number. Now, if they don't want to work with you, they're just going to say no. Don't take it personally. You weren't going to get them as clients anyway. All right. If they give you a fake email or a fake phone number, again, had it happen before. They weren't going to work with you. Don't take it personally, right? This is just like cold calling, but you're doing it in person and you're not on a phone. It's the number of people you can put in your leads, the number of people you contact. After a while, you're going to get people, right? I've had people that called me out of the blue 6 months later and asked me, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you showed me, I met you at an open house. We like this house, 123 Main Street. Will you show it to me? Now, do you go show properties unless you know who you're showing them to and that you have somebody pre-qualified, et cetera, right? So there's all kinds of rules and you're running your own business. You set your own parameters. You do what you want. When I started, I knew nobody. I had no business. So yeah, I popped out and showed houses. So now I got some business. Am I a little bit, less pop out and do stuff? Yeah, I am. But again, no kids. I have no kids. I have no responsibilities. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, within reason, as long as Jen doesn't yell at me. So do I pop out and show stuff? Yeah, I do. Okay. But if that, again, like be safe if you don't know who it is. Okay. Be smart about it. Don't show them 500 homes if you don't know they're really. But if they want to go see one house, that is my buyer's consultation. I can go out and I can meet these people and I can show them a house. I get my own private time with them. Yeah, I do that, right? So again, so I'm back and I'm getting their information. Now, if it's a good lead, I will sit there and I will talk to them as long as I can possibly talk to them. And what am I doing? I'm dropping local knowledge on them. I'm having a great conversation. People might come into the house that I never even talked to, okay? But I'm not gonna leave this person good lead. I'm going to continue to work this person until I feel really, eventually they're going to get sick of talking to you and they're going to leave, okay? But if I've got somebody in front of me, I am not going to be greedy and try to leave them and go over and talk to these people over here, because I get into a 2-minute conversation with them and they say, hey, we have a realtor. Meanwhile, Bob and Karen walked by. Eric, it was really nice to meet you. And I could have spent another 5 minutes with Bob and Karen, and I really could have got some, I really could have cemented that relationship, right? So when somebody does walk in, I might real quick say, hey, thanks for coming. Here's the flyer on the house. If you have any questions, let me know, but I'm not leaving Bob and Karen. They're my lead. That's who I'm working. Okay. I've converted this into so many sales that I can't even count. You're just having a good conversation with people. That's how I capture people. Any questions on that so far?
Good question. When people come in, how do you find out if they're being represented?
Aha, that's an excellent question. In every single class, I get somebody to ask it. So here's the thing. I don't ask them. I don't ask them.
Eric, repeat the question. We can't hear it online.
Oh, yeah. So he asked me, when or how do I find out if they're represented by a realtor? And my answer is, I don't ask them. Okay. There's only one scenario that I do ask that question in, and that's maybe, let's say I've got 5 groups of people coming in and it's a super busy open house, which really irritates me when it gets too busy because it's really hard to work people. But again, better too busy than not busy enough, right? So the only time I ever ask is when I've got 3 groups of people and I know I'm only going to get a shot at one of them, then I'll ask that question. And I'll say, hey, Bob and Karen, do you have somebody helping you try to navigate this local real estate market? What do you mean? Well, are you working with an agent or something like that, right? And if they say, yeah, I say, great. Have them call me, right? Even though it's on my listing. And I move on to I move on to Fred and Joanne, right? That's the only time I ever ask. So if they are working with somebody, it will naturally come up in conversation. Okay. So again, and if they say I'm working with somebody, I immediately stop, right? Now, if they're the only people in the house, I'm still going to have a good conversation with them, right? But the notepad goes in the pocket and I talk to them and then at that point, local knowledge. I'm dropping local knowledge on them, right? I'm trying to have a good conversation because again, Aluna and Travis, I had that conversation with them. They were only people in the house. A month later, they called me and said, basically, our realtor sucks. We want to work with you. Essentially, they said it not like that, right? And I sold them a house, even though they said they had a realtor. And again, that's happened a number of times over the years. So I continue to have a good, right? Don't ask them. I don't ever ask just because if I've just met you and one of the first 3 questions I asked you is, are you working with a realtor? I always like to substitute, what would I do? Okay. Like if you walk into a clothing store and somebody says, can I help you find something? My first response is, leave me alone. I can look at clothing myself. Okay. I don't want people to bother me. Okay. So if somebody says, are you working with somebody? What am I going to say? I'm going to say yes, so they leave me alone. Right. But again, maybe you click with that person. Maybe they do have a great conversation. Don't give them that out in the first couple questions when they walk in, unless you have to make a choice. If you're going to go after Fred and Joanne, whatever their names were, or Bob and Karen, then I ask that question. Okay. I don't poach. I never poach. If they tell me they're working with an agent, I'm not going to send them an email. I'm not going to send them anything. All I'm going to do is have the best conversation I can, show value, right? Show them I really know the market and hope that they call me. They've got my name and number because it's on the flyer I gave them. I'm not even going to give them a card. There's 2 reasons I do that. Number one, ethically, I don't think it's right to poach people. And I've had people try to do that to my clients at open houses. And I've had my clients say, this guy was so persistent and so irritating. Finally, I just had to tell him to shut up. Okay. Now, let's say you put the shoe on the other foot. You're the client. All right. Or you're the person walking in an open house. And this person's pressing you. And you've told them you had an agent. And yet they continue to try to get your business. What do you think of that person? Are you going to work with them? No, because immediately your first thought is this person has the ethics of, Saddam Hussein. I'm not going to work with this person. They're just out here, used car salesmen, doing whatever they can. I'm not going to work with that person. As soon as they tell me that, I back off. And by back off, I mean, I quit writing things down. I change my approach, and all I do is drop knowledge on them because that's what's going to help. That's my best shot at getting that client. And I'm not going to look unethical. And I'm not going to be unethical. So that's how. So that's how I capture clients. That's how I get that. Again, I'm sit there and talk to them for as long as I possibly can, and then when they leave, wash, rinse, repeat. I'm going to try to get as, if I can walk out of an open house with 2, 3, 4 solid leads, that's what I do. So I do have a sign-in sheet. I don't have it with me. It's just a generic name, phone number, address, whatever, right? And I leave it out, and some people will fill it out. I've had people fill it out that I never talked to. And then I got to follow up the next day going, what was this person? I don't remember this person at all because I was working a lead, right? So I do have it out there. When I'm getting somebody's email address, I like to write it down myself. Nothing sucks worse than you get home and you can't read their handwriting. You're like, oh my God, I had a really good conversation with them. Okay. Some people will get the email address, get all excited and forget to ask for a phone number. Okay. So you send them an email, send them an email, send them an email. Meanwhile, it's going to spam. They're sitting at home going, how come that Eric guy never emailed me? Or they don't see it. Or I've got one email account that I check once a year. Okay. Some people don't check their emails. They don't. That's why you want a phone number, right? When I get that phone number, I'm going to say, hey, I'm not going to spam you. I'm not going to blow you up. I'm not a salesman. I help people find homes. That's my specialty, right? When some people, and again, I'm tailoring this speech to who's in the house. I just learned that they moved here from St. Louis. I'm a specialist. I'm a buyer specialist in this area. That's what I do. I help people find houses. Okay. Now the neighbor comes in, right? Hey, I'm a specialist in selling houses. I can, you're a specialist in whatever they want to hear. Okay. Right. So but honestly, so I've used that buyer specialist line before when people are coming from out of town. They think that's a thing. They're like, oh, I'm a buyer specialist in West Chase. Well, which I am, but whatever, right? You'd be surprised how well that works. I'm getting their information. I'm having a good conversation. I'm playing 50 questions with them. I'm asking them as much as I possibly can. And I'm writing this all down on my little piece of paper as fast as I can. And when I get done, they leave. I put that piece of paper in my pocket. Hopefully I go home with like 3, 4, 5 pieces of paper in my pocket. And then when I get home, I do something with them. All right. Any questions so far about what I do? Again, right, wrong, or whatever, it's what I do. Okay, excellent. So when I get home, what am I going to do? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take those people and I'm going to put them in Command because that is the database that I use now. For the longest time, it was eEdge. So my speech has changed, in the last year or so. So I'm going to put them in Command. There's a place in Command, name, phone number. There's a place in Command where you can put notes, right? So as soon as I get to the notes page, and I'm going to, you really got to do this the same day. Again, everything I've done wrong. Okay. Do it that night if you can, as soon as you get home. Hey, met Bob and Karen at open house on Tavistock, such and such a date. Bob was wearing a Rangers shirt. He must be a Texas baseball fan. Karen talked, she was a school teacher for a long time. They just moved here from St. Louis. We talked about, eating Italian on the hill, McConnell's cheeseburgers, whatever we talked about. Any little thing I could remember is going to go in that note section, right? Along with Bob and Karen's lease is up at this time. They're looking for a 4-3 pool, like updated, don't want to do any work, don't want to deal with the new roof, don't have kids, care about schools, don't care about schools, whatever. Anything I can put in those notes that I can reference later that's going to help me. The number of times that I've gone back through my notes, because you meet so many people, you're just not going to remember. Okay. I mean, I told you, Bob and Karen just walked in the master bedroom and I forgot their names already. Right. So anything I can remember, right? I had a person call me, Cheryl and Keith Nations. I mean, I kind of remembered them, but kind of didn't. I looked at my notes. They were watching a horse race. Right? Like, oh yeah, I remember you guys were watching the horse race when you were at the open house. Yeah, you remember that. Yeah, you guys are awesome. They're my favorite people. So I sold Keith and Cheryl a house, by the way. And they gave me Shannon and I don't remember his name, Ryan. I sold them a house. And then Ryan gave me Tom and Dove, and I'm in the process of selling Tom and Dove a house. It all came out of an open house. All right. So when I get home, first thing I'm gonna do is put them in command. Second thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give them a search. All right. I'm gonna get on MLS. I'm gonna, hopefully they're not looking for a unicorn. Now, right now, super hard to do because there's only one house for sale in all of West Chase. What are you gonna do, right? But in normal times, right? Reference normal times. I'm gonna get on my computer and I'm gonna say, I'm gonna do a search, 4, 3, 2, right? And hopefully it brings me back like 10, 12, however many results it's gonna bring me back. I'm gonna look at the first one and I'm gonna open up another window and I'm gonna type this in Word. I'm gonna say, hey, Bob and Karen, really nice meeting you. I did a little work on the computer for you today. Always, I did a little work. Let them know you're showing value, you're doing something for you. You know, here's a couple houses you may wanna consider. 123 Main Street. I think you'll like this house because it's gray, it's neutral. I think you'll like the kitchens, the pool, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And I might write, you know, 4, 5, 6 sentences. I'm not writing a book for these people, okay? And then I'll go 124 Main Street, right? And I'll tell them, hey, this is, you know, I think this might be a fit for you because of this, that, and the other. So I'm gonna do that like 3 or 4 times. The last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw a dog in there, right? So I'm gonna find 128 Main Street. It needs everything. It's not at all what they want. It's the wrong colors, faces the wrong direction, doesn't have a pool, but has room to put a pool in. Right? So anyway, I'm going to find that dog and I'm going to say, and lastly, Bob and Karen, 128 Main Street. I really don't think this is a good fit for you, but I wanted to make sure that I left no stone unturned. I don't want to place my own preferences in front of yours, but this is why I don't think it works for you. It's, you know, yes, it doesn't have a pool. First of all, it doesn't have a pool, but it had room to put one in. So if you loved everything else, but anyway, I'm going to tell them 3 or 4 reasons based on our conversation why 128 Street doesn't work for you. The reason I'm doing that is Bob and Karen are going to read this email and they're going to say, wow, that Eric kid, man, he really listened to he's got us pegged, right? He really knows his stuff. He listened because that's what people want you to do. They just want you to listen. They want you to listen. You are a consultant helping people find a home, right? And again, you show value by knowing the market. You show value by doing a little bit of work, right? So what's it take me, you know, to do that search for Bob and Karen? It might take me like 30 minutes, right? And if I've got 4 or 5 slips of piece of paper in my pocket, it might take me a couple hours after an open house to do this stuff. But that is my second step of capturing the people. The second thing I'm going to do is if you enter them in as a contact in MLS, you can see when they look. You can see that they've opened up that search and looked at it. This is not a computer class. You guys figure that out, right? But you can see when they look. So I know when they look. If they haven't looked within 24 hours, I'm going to shoot them a text. That's the other thing. So when I get their phone, when I get their information and they give me their phone number, I say, listen, because MLS is a third-party server, and I make up some hokey crap because I don't understand computers. And I say, because MLS is a third party, sometimes this will go to spam. What's your preferred method of communication? I can just shoot you a text and let you know that I sent you an email if text is the way you want to go. Always offer the text first because people, right? So after I send Bob and Karen this email, I might even shoot them a text right off the get-go and say, hey, Bob and Karen, really great to meet you. I sent you an email. Take a look at it and let me know what you think, right? Now, Bob and Karen may disappear like a fart in the wind and you never ever hear from them again. And that's brutal and it is what it is. But this is a numbers game. The more people you put in the pipeline, the more little pieces of paper you come home with in your pocket, the better chance you're going to have of getting a client out of it. That's how I capture clients, right? I go above and beyond and I make sure I take care of my clients really well. And I get repeat business. And all the people I've sold a home to, there's only one person that I know would never call me to sell or do business with them ever again. And that wasn't my fault. They're terrible people. So they're terrible people. Mm-hmm. Don't overlook anybody. So let's say a neighbor comes in, hey, my name's, so sometimes you can't always get everybody's information, right? You don't have time. It didn't naturally lend itself. I don't say, this is my sign-in sheet, you must sign in. I don't do that. I mean, if they do, great, but I believe in garbage in, garbage out. They're either naturally going to work with you or they're not going to work with you, Okay, if you get a bunch of names and if you get names and phone numbers, and if I don't know who they are, I might just put them on a drip campaign or put them on, emails or whatever. And get something out of it, great, but I don't count on it ever. I don't ever count on getting anything out of it. But another thing I do, so let's say Bob and Karen come in and they're neighbors, right? Oh yeah, we live in the neighborhood. Oh, Bob and Karen, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah. I still do the same thing. Have a good conversation with them. We're both live in the same neighborhood, so blah, blah, blah. What I do when I get home is I look up Bob and Karen. How do I do that? You can click on houses and the names of the people that will own it show up, right? Now, what are the chances of on the same street or within a street or two over or whatever, Robert and Karen pop up? Slim, right? Or Bob and Karen or whatever it is, right? So I'm pretty sure I got the right people. I'm going to write Bob and Karen a handwritten note. Bob and Karen, thank you so much. It was great meeting you today. If I can ever help you with, with your real estate needs or, go Rangers or, whatever we had in common that I could put personally in that note so they know it's not just garbage I'm sending them. I'm sticking a stamp on that and I'm getting it in the mail the next day. Right? I had a couple call me 2 years later and say, hey, Eric, we met you at an open house a couple years ago. And I never got these people's information. But her name was Brina. And I know what neighborhood she lived in. And I found her. So I sent her a handwritten note. 2 years later, give or take, maybe it was a year and a half, I don't know. They called me and said, hey, we're selling our house. We remember meeting you back in the day. Would you come over and talk to us? Sure. I show up to to Brina and Kip's house, had a great conversation. We were friends at the end, ended up getting the listing. And let me tell you something, nobody's ever going to ask me to teach a class about listing presentations because I'm not good at it. Basically, if I go to the house, I probably have it already unless I pee on the table, right? Because I'm not good at going in and trying to do that stuff. So Kip and Brina, so I got the listing, we shake hands, we're getting ready to leave. And Brina said, Eric, cards on the table. We called you because you sent us a handwritten note. I swear to God, she said that, right? And I said, awesome. So I sold their house in West Chase. They bought a house off of Bexley from me, Bexley off of 54, their forever house that they're never going to move from, except for a year and a half later after that, they called me and said, hey, we're moving, will you come sell our house, right? And then on top of that, they go to South Florida. I get a referral out of them, which was another $3,000 because they bought a $500,000 house down there. Like Kip and Brina was worth like $30,000 to me because I sent them a handwritten note. Go, if you're a new agent, go do what they tell you to do, the 10-4 or whatever, do that. When I first started, I looked at vacant houses all the time. I'll never forget, I was doing an open house in a Charles Rutenberg house a Charles Rutenberg agent in my neighborhood. Lady comes in, I talked to her for about 1 minute and she says, and honest to God's truth, she said, I hate Keller Williams agents. This lady said this to me. I'm like, whoa, if there had been anybody else in the house, right, I'd have been gone. I'd have been talking to somebody else, but there wasn't. It was her daughter and her little grandbaby. So I chatted with them. And she said, yeah, we were looking at such and such a house. I was like, oh, I know that house. I've seen that house. It's got this, that, and the other. And she's like, yeah, yeah. And then another house came up and I was like, oh, I've actually seen that house. It's over by, it's got this, that, and the other, right? So this happens 3 times that we're sitting there talking. She goes, wow, you really know your stuff. And I said, I'm a West Chase expert and I know my market and I work hard to make sure I know my market for my sellers or for my buyers. Anyway, have a nice long conversation with these people. This lady that told me she hates KW agents. I've now sold her, between her and her 2 daughters, 6 properties, 7 properties. I lose count, to be honest with you. I just showed them a house yesterday. Yesterday? Day before yesterday. Yesterday was Easter, wasn't it? Yeah, so I showed them a house Saturday, another house they're going to buy. And she's about to sell another one. And they've given me 4 referrals, 2 of which I've sold a house to. So go look at vacant houses. You can go, don't feel.
Yeah, and I could meet Amber at 1.
Yeah, no problem. Don't feel obligated. So handwritten notes, hugely powerful. Add people to your database, call people from your database. That's what I do at open houses. Does anybody have any questions? Make sure I didn't miss anything here. No, I think that's pretty much it.
One of the
Anybody
questions,
on Zoom?
One of the questions on Zoom says, have you ever arrived at the house as a disaster?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so again, like you try to see the house in advance if you can. But the way I look at it and early on, what I did was some work is better than no work. If there was a choice between going out and doing an open house that I know the house wasn't perfect, but I was still working versus sitting at home watching Law and Order and playing with the cats. So I play with the cats and watch Law and Order a lot. So yeah, it's not ideal. Pick up best you can. I have paper towels with me to pick up roaches off the floor. You know, again, that's why I show up early, do the best you can. But again, try not to pick that house because people are going to associate you with that house, whether it's your listing or not. It's subliminal. They're going to picture that house and you in it. So try not to do those houses. She just asked what I said to the lady who said, I hate Keller Williams agents. I think I probably just laughed. I don't remember honestly. So I probably just laughed. And then I said, well, you know, I remember I said something to the effect of, well, you know, not all Keller Williams offices are equal. It just so happens to be that I work at the best one. Right. And she was from Missouri. So maybe the ones in Missouri stink. I don't know. I doubt it, but right. And the other thing is she had kind of been a realtor, right? So she had her license, dabbled a little bit, did a little business. And I'm sure at one point or another, a KW agent rubbed her the wrong way. I mean, there's a couple agents out there I'd like to punch in the face. So, and I mean that in a nice way, of course, yeah, all agents are great to work with, except for the ones that aren't. So.
Eric, I got a question for you.
Go.
Okay, so let's say you have a listing and you have some prospects walking through the property, and they ask if you have any other listings coming up. And let's say you don't. What's your approach to try to secure them as a buyer? Again, that's pretty standard. And I just say, I do the old, I don't have anything coming up, but I always get wind of something because I'm a buyer specialist and I do live here in the neighborhood. I always get wind of things coming up. So if you give me your information, I'll make sure you're in the know and you're going to know before other people do, which may be a line of crap. But if they think you're in the know and if they think that you know things ahead of time and you can help them, it's a good way to at least start a conversation with them and get their information. So, and occasionally, you know, I'll hear stuff, not really so much. I mean, these days people are playing everything so close to the vest because they know their listing is going to sell in 48 hours and they want to double dip it. So yeah, but that's one thing you can do. Play it like you're in the know. You're an agent. I know things. Any other questions on the Zoom? Okay, awesome. No questions. I'm leaving. I got to go show some houses. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Eric. That was awesome.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Jen, do you know how to end this or whatever? Jen, talking to myself.
Not sure. Let me try.
All right, well, it'll just keep on going forever then because I don't know how to do it.
When you move the mouse on the bottom right corner, it should say end meeting. It'll be a big red button.
Oh, there we go. Got it.